Could you please tell us how did you decided to join the Indian Army?
My dad was in the army, and from the time I came to understand things, I used to watch him in his uniform, going to work, to his office, dealing with people, the military equipment around him.
Okay.
So all that had a big influence in my life.
According to you, what did Pakistan want? Why the terrorism increased so much?
And in 1948, they sent in their army dressed as civilian, marauding as civilians to try and occupy parts of Jammu and Kashmir. And that time, J&K was independent. It was not with India.
So, sir, moving forward, the recent attack that happened, do you think China was a mastermind behind that?
Surely Pakistan was involved in it because the way the chief gave a speech of the two-nation theory and how we are different, the Muslims are different from the Hindus and things like that.
Pakistan always threatens that they are going to do a nuclear war, and they keep on threatening that. What do you want to tell about that? Could you just guide through your memories that you still remember that you carry, or any tough decision that you took during your time?
When I was in Kashmir, and we had gone for this operation which is called a cordon and search.
Okay.
And cordon and search normally happens when you get some information that some terrorists are hiding in an area.
So moving forward, we all know that in Pakistan itself there's a civil war going, but still they are planning to attack. How are they managing everything? Like the economy is going down, everything is going on, but still they are planning an attack on us.
So I would not call it a civil war actually.
Today's podcast is going to be very interesting because with us today we have General Vikram. Welcome to the Manav Show, sir.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So moving forward, could you please tell us how did you decided to join the Indian Army?
In my case, my dad was in the army.
Okay.
And from the time I came to understand things, I used to watch him in his uniform, going to work, to his office, dealing with people, the military equipment around him.
Okay.
So all that had a big influence in my life. And maybe when I was just about 4 years of age, from then on, I decided that I want to join the army. And that never changed. So when I finished my school, in fact, I was in class 11 when I took the NDA examination, joined the NDA, and thereafter it was just NDA, IMA, and I was in the army.
Oh, okay. So which year did you get commissioned?
I was commissioned in 1981.
Okay. So when you were commissioned in 1981, so at that time J&K was very different, and right now J&K is very different.
True.
So what difference have you seen from the past and right now?
So when you talk of J&K from the pre-terrorism days,
Right.
it was a very nice tourist location. I remember also going there in 1978. I went and did water skiing on the Dal Lake.
Okay.
There were these houseboats which are still there,
Right.
but they were full of tourists, and it was like any other normal tourist destination, except that it was very popular because, Srinagar has such lovely environment, climate, and there are things that you get out there which you don't get elsewhere.
Right.
But ever since terrorism became a part of J&K, that was from the late 80s onwards, things began to change. The terrorists attacked first the civilians, then there was exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits. They were targeting people specifically for their religion and, shooting them. So most of them left. And that created an environment where tourism, which was the mainstay of J&K, came down. And I remember going there 1998, when it was at the peak terrorism, and it was like a ghost city. You couldn't see people on the streets. Very few shops were open, and there was an eerie feeling about Kashmir because you expected a bullet to come at you from anywhere, from any side, things like that. And then came the phase when there was stone throwing happening at the security forces. Everything which happened was protested about. Terrorists came in from Pakistan, from other parts of Afghanistan, when the Soviets withdrew from there and things like that. And then with Modi came the abrogation of 370.
Right.
When he removed 370. And that then brought down a drastic change again, where again things calmed down, the stone pelting stopped, tourism picked up.
Right.
And it was nearing normalcy like it used to be earlier when that happened.
So, sir, when you were at that time, when you were commissioned, according to you, what did Pakistan want? Why the terrorism increased so much during that time?
So it was not that Pakistan didn't want this earlier.
Okay.
From the time Pakistan was created, they wanted Kashmir.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1948, they sent in their army dressed as civilian, marauding as civilians to try and occupy parts of Jammu and Kashmir.
Mm.
And that time, J&K was independent. It was not with India.
Okay.
And then the Raja out there at that time, the Dogra king, he asked India for help.
Mm.
And then India said that we will help you, provided you accede to us. You say that I want to be part of India, and a treaty of accession was signed.
Okay.
After which the Indian army was sent in. They've flown into Srinagar and other places. And then they stopped the Pakistanis from advancing forward, also reclaimed some of it. And then ceasefire came about with the intervention of the United Nations. And the line that was held at that time became the line of control.
Okay.
So from the inception of Pakistan, they wanted J&K. Now, they always were wondering how to get that. And therefore, we fought a war in 1965. We fought a war in 1971.
Right.
But they realized that when the Soviets left Afghanistan, they had all these militants who had participated against the Soviets who were now without a job.
Mm.
And they realigned them and sent them into J&K to cause turmoil, to cause terrorism. And they felt that it's a cheap option to get Kashmir out of India.
Mm.
And that's how Pakistan's active involvement commenced in Kashmir in the form of terrorism.
Mm. Okay. So, sir, moving forward, the recent attack that happened in Kashmir, and do you think China was the mastermind behind that? Because we have seen that from business point of view, many manufacturing units started leaving China and they started investing in India because they saw future in India. So might that be the reason that China put pressure on Pakistan and tried to create a war-like situation?
Well, anything is possible.
Okay.
But I would not think so.
Okay.
The theory that you're talking of, there may be a truth in it. But I personally feel that China may not be involved in it, but surely Pakistan was involved in it, because the way the chief gave a speech of the two-nation theory and how we are different, the Muslims are different from the Hindus and things like that, it was almost like a signal that something would happen. And then it did happen. So I can't talk about the Chinese theory, but yeah.
Okay.
Pakistan surely.
Okay, and if a war has to happen between India and China right now, what would it look like? And would it be only be limited to the borders?
I don't think war between India and China would be limited to the borders.
Okay.
Because whilst the ground forces would be in contact, but there's not much headway that can be made on the ground. You know, India fought a war with China in 1962, and the Chinese came well into India. And post the withdrawal, India had learnt its lesson. And now all those valleys that were used by China to come into India have been fortified by lots of troops on ground, fortifications, defenses of all kinds. And therefore, making progress on ground is going to be really, really difficult and time consuming. Therefore, in my opinion, a war between India and China will be more in the air and in the sea.
Okay.
And that is the place where sky is the limit, literally. Because there are no restrictions, and that's where I feel the major wars will be fought.
Okay. As we saw in the recent time also, the drone attack has started to increase. So do you think that the same kind of situation can arise ahead?
Surely. That situation is now a reality. It's happening in the Ukraine war. It's happening elsewhere in the world. And it happened now recently with us, and we saw how swarms of drones can come and overwhelm your electronics and your defense systems. And you can't stop each and every one of them. Therefore, if you send in, say, 1,000, there's a good chance that 10% would get through and they would cause casualties and damage inside. So it's a live threat, and everybody is very conscious about it. And I think the Indian Army and the Air Force and anybody else, the Navy and others who are involved in this, have learned, not now, but from earlier time, and now we are even more prepared for it.
Okay. Yeah. So again, coming back to Pakistan always threatens that they are going to do a nuclear war, and they keep on threatening that. What do you want to tell about that?
So, the only time we had nuclear explosions were in Hiroshima and
Right,
Nagasaki
Nagasaki.
during the Second
Right.
World War. And we saw the kind of destruction that it caused.
Hmm.
And therefore, that is the image of what a nuclear strike would be.
Hmm.
And nobody in their right mind would ever want that to happen anywhere.
Hmm.
So when India first detonated the nuclear bomb and followed by Pakistan, this Pakistan's nuclear bomb primarily came about to act as a deterrent. Because Pakistan understands that India and Pakistan are not equal in terms of their conventional might, and that India will overwhelm Pakistan, as has happened in all the battles.
Right.
And the only way they can carry on their mischief and yet avoid India from attacking them is by saying, we will throw a nuclear bomb at you. It's called nuclear saber rattling. You keep threatening. Tum karoge to hum bomb maar denge. So that is what has been keeping India away now for so many years, not taking action despite all the events of terrorism that happened in terms of, 26/11 happened, Parliament happened, so much others happened, but nothing was done. And this is the reason why Pak wants to or threaten us with a nuclear bogey. Now, whether it's a bogey or it's actual truth, only time can tell. Because, and when you deal with an irrational nation, a nation which may go to any extent for achieving something which may be not in the good of the country, but in personal good of some people, then it becomes irrational. And rationality doesn't work. And that is why the Indian state till now has never wanted to go in and do something which will trigger them to a state that they will use nuclear device against us. So it's like, drawing a line that up to here, it's okay, you go beyond this, we'll hit you. Right. And we don't want to get into that thing because we are not insane. We're not a rash nation. But where that line is anybody's question, guess. And this time, when Op Sindoor happened, and we struck Pakistan in its heartland, that risk was taken. Right. And I think it was taken very well. It was required. And it sent a message that you may have nuclear weapons, so do we. But that's where it stops. We can still hit you, and we can hit you where it hurts you.
So, sir, with this, you said that Pakistan keeps on threatening us by saying that they are going to attack by the nuclear bomb. But I would like to add to this that last podcast was with Colonel Nilesh Patharkar that I had, and he was in J&K. Terrorist had attacked, and he was shot. Like both the knees were shot, and he was not able to move. And for literally 7 hours, he was positioned like this towards the wall so that terrorists don't come in. And I don't think so by that threat, India is going to be scared, because Indian Army, with the podcast that I have with Colonel Sir, it was amazing, like the inspiration. And he says that he's retired now, but he says that if I get the opportunity, I still go and kill the Pakistan terrorist and I'll come back.
So, nuclear war is not because of terrorists.
Right.
Terrorists are within India. Nuclear strike by Pakistan can only happen when you go into Pakistan. And like we did this time, when you went and hit their air bases and their cities and those madrasas where they felt that, where, the terrorists were training, that is what can actually trigger a nuclear strike. Not terrorists. Right. Not small skirmishes like Kargil or things like that. These are not consequential areas, because this is not the heartland of Pakistan. These are disputed areas. So, sir,
we just discussed about Colonel Nilesh, sir, and how he was shot. So he told me about his incidents, his memories. Could you just guide through your memories that you still remember, that you carry, or any tough decision that you took during your time?
I remember very clearly an incident when I was in Kashmir. And we had gone for this operation which is called a cordon and search. Okay. And cordon and search normally happens when you get some information that some terrorists are hiding in an area. So what you do is you go and cordon off that area, and you place an inner cordon and outer cordon, and then a party goes from house to house in the village to search if there are any terrorists. And prior to that, when you lay the cordon, you call all the villagers to a central place in the village, maybe a ground or something, and they're made to sit apart. So we had got information that some terrorists are in the vicinity, and this village that we went to was to be cordoned and searched. And when we went there, we laid down the cordon and we got all the villagers out. It was about 4 a.m. in the morning. And as the parties kept moving from house to search, as they got closer to a part of the village, we could sense there is unease amongst the villagers. And that was, of course, whilst you're looking out for such signs, it was an indication that maybe there is something there. And as that house clearing parties got closer there, we found that there was fire which opened up from there. So they shot. And of course, when that happens, then that area becomes active. Rest of the villagers are kept aside, and the cordon and all are then, of course, they are already in place, so that if they run away, the cordon is basically that when they try and run, you can shoot them. But as you're aware, the terrain is all forested, it is undulating, and how much ever you may be expert or cautious in your cordon, there's always a gap where people might be able to get away. So when this firefight started, a whole lot of our reinforcements, which are already there, went and cordoned off that area. And in that firefight, I remember very clearly there were 2 terrorists which were killed on site, and the indications that came from the kind of firing which happens. When the firing comes from different parts, you get an idea how many terrorists are there. Right. So we had estimated that there are 4, and 2 we could knock down, and 2 got away. And this entire thing, of course, I've just given you the nutshell, because it's very detailed. You can go on and on about it. This entire thing took us a better part of about 4-5 hours. To come to this kind of a thing. And then, of course, once those terrorists were killed, it was quite evident they were not local. They had come from outside. I'm talking about 1998. 98. These were foreign terrorists, and that was a time when a lot of Afghanis were coming in from Afghanistan after, like I said, the Soviets had gone, and some people, other nationalities also. So these were like 2 Afghan terrorists. They were unknown or not named as far as our lists were concerned. But that was the thing. And those boys who were in contact really fought very bravely. And we had injuries on our side also. Luckily, no casualties in terms of death, but surely there were casualties in terms of injuries.
So during that time, as you said that you used to target a place, but at that time earlier, local people, they should support the people who are staying there. So how you used to tackle that? Because during a conversation, I also got to know that local people used to throw pebbles, axes on you guys. So how you should tackle that situation?
So what happens in the incident that I'm narrating is that nobody knows which village you're going to. So your parties leave, but they don't go towards that village. They move in a different direction and then come in a roundabout manner. So surprise is maintained. But obviously that can also be leaked out. But by the time it's leaked out, it is only the people who are in the village, and the time, like I told you, is early morning, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. You're doing it by night. Most people are asleep. Okay. Now the people who are in the village are called out, and they have to come out. There's no choice. Now those people who are called out are all made to sit at a certain place, and they are kept well guarded. Of course, like I told you, they got uneasy. They start beating utensils, they start making noise, they start protesting. The women try and interfere with all this that's happening, because all these are techniques. That's normal. That is part, you're expecting that, and you're taking care of that.
That's a very inspiring story, sir, because I want that everybody who is seeing our podcast, they get to know that what our people from Indian Armed Forces go through. The job is not easy, and I want them to know that they have gone through a lot of things, and they are going through a lot of things.
Yeah, of course, and this is only one part. So there are also, regular inputs that terrorists are getting infiltrated, and you go and place ambushes. You lie in wait for them. But as you're aware, putting an ambush, you could be there for hours. You don't find anybody coming because you got wrong information, or they took a different route, or they got to know that you're waiting for them. And in the bargain, you could be ambushed. So these are situations which are very live, and they are constantly changing and happening out there. So it's not an easy life to make sure that it's like going hunting. And going hunting, somebody who is as capable as you are to hunt you also in return. Okay. So the dynamics are very, very intricate.
Okay. So moving forward, we all know that in Pakistan itself there's a civil war going, but still they are planning to attack. How are they managing everything? Like the economy is going down, everything is going on, but still they are planning an attack on us.
So I would not call it a civil war actually.
Okay.
You are, I think, referring to
Balochistan,
Balochistan,
yes.
where there is an uprising against the Pakistanis because the Baluchs feel that they need independence and they want their own state, and they are targeting the Pak army. So that is a very live problem. And apart from that, there are also the Pashtuns who are also anti the Pakistan army or the state. And then you have the economy, like you mentioned, they're going in the doldrums. $1 is almost 330, 40 rupees. Then you have political problems within Imran Khan's party and the present dispensation. And within the army, there is unrest in the sense that there are co-commanders who are not happy with Munir. So there is a little bit of friction there also. And the local people are not happy with the army because if you remember when Imran Khan was being arrested, they had attacked the corps commander's house and burnt it down and things like that. So despite all this happening, Pakistan is still putting up a brave face and wanting to fight India. And I feel one of the reasons could be that when you have an external problem, all the people inside unite. You see our own political setup. You know, when there's nothing happening, everybody is targeting each other politically within India. But when Sindoor happened, everybody got together, and now we have these parliamentary committees which have gone from whichever party they are. They are all, from the opposition. And they're all saying the same things and, pushing the mandate of the country. So that could be one of the reasons that they're looking at distraction within Pakistan. The other, like I said, is, of course, the survival of the Pak army. The Pak army only survives if there is a relevance of them, and their relevance is India. You want to fight India, so the Pak army is getting its resources and showing that we are required in this country and we are calling the shots. Otherwise, you will be taken over by the Indians. So it's all a very complicated situation. It's not as if they are fighting a righteous war. Whenever you fight a war, there is a cause. And if that cause is not just, then that kind of, dedication for your mission is not there. If India went and hit Pakistan, we had a just cause. They carried out terrorism in Pahalgam. And in retaliation, India went and hit them. But the Pakis don't have a just cause to go and, say we carried out terrorism, we were hit. It's not just. So that dichotomy is always there. It's a difficult situation. But like I said, it could be either to try and unite them, but I think it's more that the army wants its relevance by creating the Indian story, by saying we're going to attack them and things like that.
But so for the past many years, Pakistan have only one agenda, that is to have Kashmir. Other than that, they have nothing left in them. So, and with this Balochistan coming up again and again, do you think Balochistan will get its freedom?
I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah, because the Baluchs are right now in a fast forward mode. And the kind of actions they're doing and the kind of casualties the Pak army is taking thanks to Balochistan is more than it ever did. And they have been persecuted by the Pakistanis because the Pakistan army is dominated by the Punjabi Muslims. And they have persecuted Baluchs by even throwing them from helicopters because they felt they're not even worth spending a bullet on. And they have, raped and plundered and stuff like that. Also, Balochistan contributes the maximum to the economy of Pakistan, and yet it's the most poorly developed place in Pakistan. The resources are all being taken. The Chinese corridor, CPAC, is running through Balochistan. So I hope Balochistan will break away, and that would, cut down Pakistan to size. And the Baluchs always felt, I believe, that even when independence came from the British, the Baluchs had asked to be part of India. But at that time, Jawaharlal Nehru had said, no, it's too far away. And so they didn't accept it. Otherwise, they were always wanting to be India. And there are a lot of people out there from Indian origin who are there in Balochistan.
Okay.
And they're from Maharashtrian origin.
Okay, so what is your take on IMF granting a loan to Pakistan?
Well, I can't comment on this because, despite India's protests and India saying that this will go
Right.
only to fund the terrorists and the war and things like that, the IMF went and gave them the grant. And that could be due to vested interests, because you must have read recently that Trump's Trump's wife has signed a Bitcoin agreement with the Pak army.
Right.
So I don't know if that could be a reason, or there could be other wheels within wheels which we are not aware of. But surely, despite knowing the disadvantages of funding a state like Pakistan, who's going to use the money only for terrorism and say buying arms to be used against India, they went ahead and did it. It's a very difficult reason to find out why. Okay, it's all conjecture.
So apart from war by India just going and attacking Pakistan, we have seen that India have done a tactical thing also by stopping the Indus Water Treaty. So I want to know firstly, what is the Indus Water Treaty? How it started? What was its origin like?
So the Indus Water Treaty was negotiated between India and Pakistan without much thought from the Indian side. It was more like a concession given to Pakistan to convince them that we wish well for you, where almost 80% of the water from the 3 rivers which are running in the north went to Pakistan, and only 20% coming to India. So and it was a treaty just between India and Pakistan, facilitated by the World Bank. It is not that the World Bank had brokered this deal, they only facilitated it. And over the years, despite all the wars we fought with Pakistan, and despite being at a disadvantage as far as the amount of water that we are receiving from those rivers which run through our country, it was never abrogated or held in abeyance. But now, when we said that, okay, it's put on hold or it's held in abeyance, means that we can do what we like with that water.
Right.
Which is not tactical, it's strategic.
Strategic, yes.
It's strategic because you can change the kind of agriculture pattern and the economy of Pakistan, especially its Punjab, with this water, if you can stop it. So, ever since this happened, India is now regulating the water at our own whims and fancies. And why we're regulating it is because we can't divert it. Right now, we don't have the infrastructure to either hold it or divert it. But that infrastructure can be built. It will take some time to be built. But once built, you can actually stop all flow of water. So therefore, it is a very, very good move. It's a big signal to say that, listen, you do terrorism, we will stop your water, we will starve you. Okay. So that's the implication.
So just like Indus Water Treaty was there, do you think there are any other strategies that India can apply so that they can put pressure on Pakistan?
I think India has already applied the other strategies like trade, medical tourism, stopping the Pakis from coming to India to carry out medical procedures, stopping of movement of people across borders, not allowing Paki films or Paki actors or singers to work. So these are all, whilst they are small steps, but I think when all this is put into effect together, with what we spoke of earlier in terms of the political scenario there, the Baluchistan, Pakhtun scene, the factioning within the army, the IWT, I think it all turns out into a big, big action when it's all put together, aggregated and put together.
So I want to ask about INS Vikrant. Why is it so powerful?
See, INS Vikrant is a aircraft carrier. And an aircraft carrier is nothing but a moving airport. So when an aircraft carrier moves, for its protection, there is a whole fleet of other ships. So the aircraft carrier is in the center, and it's surrounded by a fleet of ships to give it protection from the ground. Aerial protection it has in terms of its own fighter aircraft and whatever air defense systems that are existing in the ships around. Now imagine that if you have to go and attack a country which is thousands of kilometers away, and your aircrafts have to take off from India, then they need refueling in the air. Okay, so the pilots also have to fly long hours. Like if I give an example, Libya was struck by American pilots and they had to fly 16 hours. They refueled in the air.
Okay.
And when the pilots finally landed, they had to be lifted out of the cockpits. They were so sore and stiff because they had been sitting in that position for such long times. But it can be done. But imagine if now you have an aircraft carrier which has moved close to its target. So instead of flying thousands and thousands of kilometers, you have to fly only 500 kilometers or, less. So the ease of refueling, rearming, restriking, reattacking is so much more. And that's why an aircraft carrier is a very potent fighting platform. And so if Vikrant is sitting at the port, at the mouth of Karachi, then Karachi can be struck anytime at will. Okay. Without anybody interfering, because you're not flying through hostile areas or hostile country. You're coming across international waters. That's where it's so feared.
I feel that's the power of INS Vikrant. It was not used in Operation Sindoor, but it was feared a lot.
Absolutely.
Okay. And one more.
In 1971, when the war with Pakistan took place, the American 7th Fleet came and docked in the Arabian Sea.
Okay.
That was a threat to India.
Oh.
That if you go on, we will use our planes to come and strike you. And in reciprocation, the Russians moved a fleet also. So that balanced it out. But that is how these are forces for threatening and forces for manipulating out of the muscle that you carry with it.
So talking about INS Vikrant, and now in Operation Sindoor, the most used equipment was S-400. Like for taking out the drones, taking out the missiles that were coming in. So do you think it's one of the strongest weapon and the equipment bought by India till now?
So I must correct you a bit.
Okay.
S-400 was not the most used.
Okay.
S-400 is used to target only planes and missiles. S-400 can't target drones.
Right.
So the S-400, along with the other array of air defense equipment in terms of surface-to-air missiles, there were L-70 guns which are radar controlled. There are ZSUs, ZU guns which are 23 millimeter twin and 4-barrel guns. All this array which was there together was what you saw. And S-400 actually got the limelight because that is supposed to be the most potent. Taking on aircraft and it takes on missiles. So if you remember, there were missile strikes by Pakistan which were headed to India, to Delhi, Haft 1 and Haft 2, and they were struck down. So I don't know, but those would be possibly struck down by S-400. Okay. And it is a very potent. So that's why S-400 is there.
So talking about weapons, equipments, during your time, which was your favorite weapon that you like to handle or use or practice with?
See, I'm a guy from the tanks.
Right.
Okay. And a tank is a very potent weapon system. It's a weapon platform. So we have 2 machine guns.
Okay.
And we have a big main gun. And initially, I started my service with the Vijayant tank, which has got a 105 millimeter gun. And then I converted to T-72s, which has a 125 millimeter gun. So the tank itself is, I think, the most potent weapon system that there is on land. And I was part of that from the very beginning. And I love to be in a tank. Its movement is so powerful. It's got, shock action. It's got armor protection. It's got firepower. It's got everything that you want in a weapon system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is called the OG weapon, we can say it. Like the tanks are being used from the very long time.
From the First World War.
From the First World War.
Yeah.
Okay. So now after retiring, what's your passion in life? What do you want to do now?
Not do now. I've been retired 6 years.
Yes, but still, what's the passion?
Yeah, my passion in my life has just begun.
Okay.
What I did till now was being a soldier and doing everything that was to do with the army.
Right.
And after I retired, I started doing things. Obviously, I can't be in the army.
Right.
But I started doing things which I enjoy more. That is like I do the Ironman,
right.
Which is a test of endurance. And though I swore after my first Ironman never to do another one again, it's so intoxicating that 3 months into the system, I went and registered for my second one. And so now it's become like a way of life. So I do the Ironman. I take a lot of motivational talks in schools, colleges. I feel, it's time I pay back to the children and society out there. I do talks at other places to motivate people to be able to understand what they want in life, how to follow their dreams, how to make their dreams come true, how to make it a reality. I do things like that, and I'm enjoying it.
So talking about Ironman, so how did you decide that you want to start doing a Ironman? How did you enter into it?
See, my entering into it has actually got a different story, because during my service, when I was towards the peak end of my career, and I had a very, very illustrious career graph, from being the Sword of Honor, gold medalist, 4 more medals at IMA, and from all my courses, getting an alpha grading, excellent tenures as a CO, as a brigade commander, as a div commander. I didn't get promoted to Lieutenant General. And whilst people rang up and told me, this is normal, it happens, it's politics, a lot of people have faced the same problem, but I felt that somewhere I had let myself down. I had let down my family. I felt humiliated that, this has happened to me. And I got into that mode where I was brooding and wondering where it went wrong, how I could have done it better. And I kept going deeper and deeper into a hole where I stopped meeting people. I felt they would be judging me and things like that. And that lasted almost 1 year. And then I decided this is not how I want to live my life. And in this 1 year, I felt low on my self-esteem, and I felt low on confidence also. So I decided I needed to do something to get out of this. And that's how I came on the event called the Ironman. And I looked at it, and the distances are so intimidating.
Right.
I said, if I can do this at 58, then I will get my self-esteem back.
So we are at the end of our podcast. I would like to ask you 2 questions. One is a message for our enemies, and the second one is a message to the Indian youth.
The first one is a difficult message, but I think I would tell our enemies to take India seriously. It's no more the India that people imagined. We are no more there to be taken for granted.
Right.
And that has now been exhibited in the reaction that came after Pahalgam in terms of SINDOOR. And they should watch out and be cautious now how they deal with India, because India today is the 4th largest economy, heading towards 3rd largest. We have the 4th largest armed forces, the army, very, very well-trained people, and we are capable of striking where it hurts. And we also have the resolve and the political backing and the political will to do so. So I would advise them not to mess with India. As far as the message to the youth is concerned, my only message to the youth would be that learn to chase your dreams. We all dream. And I find that whilst we all dream, very few people try and make that dream come true. And to make that dream come true requires hard work, perseverance, and focus, which we are all capable of. But somewhere we shy away from doing that work because we are happy in a comfort zone. So unless you step out of your comfort zone, you will never achieve something big in life. So get in the habit of stepping out of your comfort zone, make what your goal is, and chase your dream, make it come true. Because you can make it happen.
Okay. That is a very good advice and a good message for the enemy as well for the youth. Thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity that you gave me for giving a podcast. And I hope it inspires and people learn from your knowledge and experience.
Thank you so much for having me here. I really enjoyed this session with you.